Things are starting to look a little different here in Wyoming. Good morning on day 89. First day waking up in Wyoming. And I had a really lovely first night in Wyoming. So this improvised reroute I'm on, I had used Google when I had a little bit of service to kind of map out some roads, and last night one of those roads turned out to be not much of a road, and it definitely took me through the back of somebody's property, like a big ranch. And I kind of realized I was not where I wanted to be, but I did need to continue so I could get to this highway. And and it's getting kind of late, it's getting close to dark, it's time to set up, and I can see that the path that I'm following is going to take me right by the house on this property. And so I decide I'm just going to ask. I'm just going to, rather than try and like stealth camp on somebody's property, I was like, okay, it's late, it's time to set up, I'm in a weird spot, I'm just going to explain myself and ask if it's okay if I set up my tent. And try to put together phrases in my head to kind of get the message across clearly without sounding crazy, because some people know exactly what this is and other people have no idea. And so, but ultimately they ended up being incredibly kind, and they were familiar with the CDT, and definitely let me camp. And then sort of unexpectedly, I popped into the kitchen while they were filling up some water for me. And then they had friends over, so there was a bit of there was this whole crew in the kitchen, and before I knew it, there was cake and beer and ice cream, and we were swapping stories, and they were asking me lots of questions, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm very, very grateful to those kind folks. I don't give out names or like specific places unless I know that's okay, so I'm not going to mention you by name, but if you know who you are, thank you so much. It was such a pleasant surprise and unexpected thing to spend the evening with you last night, so thank you. So my plan for today is to roadwalk this highway into encampment. I decided to go with the surety of a roadwalk rather than the clearly sometimes uncertain path of what Google Maps will show you. So I think I'm 20-ish miles from encampment, and so I'll walk till I get there, and then hopefully I'll have service there, and then I'll be able to kind of plan the rest of my route to Rawlins, and that's where I will be able to rejoin the official CDT. I could walk the highway all the way back to the CDT, but it's just that's a lot of extra walking when I mostly need to go like north and somewhat west rather than like a lot west and then north. So that's the plan. Exhibit number 411 of why people are actually pretty amazing. I do think this sort of wide open spaces look is what I'm gonna have for the next couple hundred miles at least. And you can definitely still see the haze sort of hanging in the air from that fire that's burning southwest of here. Did I say today was at 89? I think today is day 90. After so many, you start losing count. These are very pretty, but I've whacked into them several times, and they hurt. Got a bit of a headwind. Well, happily, I've made it to town, albeit a little one.
Well, I wasn't planning on staying in the little town of Riverside, but there's an RV park and a restaurant and a grocery store, or like a little convenience store, all right next to each other. Really has everything I needed. And then, of course, there's other people here, and it's like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll stay. Plus, I'm having ice cream for dinner. Probably have dinner after the ice cream. All in all, it feels really nice to be clean, pleasant little stop along the way, even if I thought I could do more today. Aside. Oh, look, a payphone. It's a blast from the past.
Good morning on day 91. I am on my way out of Riverside. I have decided I'm basically just going to road walk to Rawlins. Hopefully it won't all be highway. I think I'll be able to take some back roads, but some sort of roads. Should be there about 65 miles or so. So a couple more days, few more days of choose my own adventuring. See how we do. So I ran my thoughts about this somewhere in this section of trail being sort of the mental blues section of the CDT. Ran that by a couple other hikers and they generally agreed because they were telling me about a handful of other people that have recently quit. So yeah, I don't know what exactly we'd call it, like what section of trail you'd call this. I guess you could say NOCO for northern Colorado. So why southern Wyoming? I don't know. Anyway, it seems like this is right here around the middle is when it gets to be sort of mentally challenging. So it's a long trail. Can be tough. But fortunately, at least for me, there's like some changes coming up, which gives me some things to kind of focus on and look forward to. I'm in a new state, so woohoo! That's number one. Also, we're about to get to the Great Divide Basin, so it's going to be like being back in the desert for 100 or so miles, or more than 100 miles, and so that'll kind of shake things up. And then we're in the Wind River Range, and then we're in Yellowstone, and then we're done with Wyoming. So lots to look forward to. Well, you hike the roads, find another little town, except I think this one's going to be a little bit bigger than Riverside. I'm still on the edge of it here. So I've only just experienced a little bit of the Wyoming wind, but I get the feeling this is going to be pretty accurate. They're cranes, or at least that's what they appear to be. Well, I'm off the highway and it looks like I'll be on dirt roads for a while. Hopefully they remain real dirt roads and don't dissolve into nothing. The Wyoming weather, welcome. It's probably the worst job I've ever done setting up my tent. Like there's a bush over there in the corner. Like, I mean, this is really rough, but I did set it up during a thunderstorm. Good morning on day 92. You can see little pronghorn silhouettes on the hillside over here. I've seen a ton of these guys the past few days. They're always just like a tiny bit too far away to get a good shot of. Well, those were quite the storms that rolled through last night. Thunder, lightning, the whole shebang. I set up by like the one shrub that was about the height of my tent for some wind protection, but it made for a difficult spot because it really wasn't quite big enough. So between the other bushes that were around, but more or less worked out. Also hard to see, but that is a bald eagle flying through the sky right there. I've also seen lots of really cool birds of prey, but they're usually pretty hard to catch on camera too. Well, it's certainly starting to look like the desert. Well, I'm feeling pretty frustrated right now. I just had there's not many cars on these roads, but I just had a semi-truck driver stop and basically tell me that I was about to walk onto private property and there's a huge like construction site. So I'm on a county road, but apparently the county road was ending, and A ranch owns the land but leases it to a wind farm. And the wind farm is particularly sticklery, I guess, about people coming through. And it's probably because it's a construction site and they don't want anybody getting hurt. But to me, it sounds like they've commandeered public roads, which is incredibly frustrating. Maybe that's not the case, but it still makes me mad. And so the driver who stopped was really very kind. He was just trying to help me not get in trouble because he felt like for sure that I would. And so I've turned around. There's really not a great option. So I'm trying to figure out what exactly I'm going to do. I'm going to end up hiking back towards the highway, I think. I'm not going to go exactly where I came from. I think I'm going to end up going a little further north, but all the same, it still looks like to get to where I need to go, I'd have to cut through that private property or walk the interstate. So, I'm frustrated. And again, this driver was very kind, and he was like, you know, you can ride with me. I'm going straight through. I can take you to Highway 71 on the other side where you can get to Rawlins. And like that obviously would have totally solved the problem. But I'm so freaking committed to that continuous footpath that I'm probably going to spend the next day and a half or two walking in freaking circles around this land until I get to Rawlins. But, So my trail name, if I haven't mentioned it, is No. And I got that trail name early on in the PCT by rejecting trail names. I just thought all the suggestions were dumb, and so I kept saying no, and then they called me No, and that one stuck, and that was funny, and you know, it was fine. But I think sometimes our trail names take on other meanings for us, and lately I've been thinking that mine just sort of represents that I'm freaking stubborn as heck. Like, most sane people, I think, would take the ride. I had another driver stop, really nice guy, you know, stop, chat with me about my options of trying to get where I was trying to go, offer me a ride anywhere that could be helpful. But no. I'm crossing the North Platte River. Alright, so I'm just about back to the highway north of Saratoga because the wind farm people can't kick me off that. Well, I made it down the highway basically to the junction with Interstate 80, which if I were in a car would be a nice quick little jaunt to Rawlins from here. I'm probably 20-ish miles from Rawlins. There's a local, very nice man that allowed me to set up in his yard tonight, which was great because I think I would have been hard-pressed to find a spot along the highway. I mean, I don't know. Basically tomorrow to get to Rawlins, there's no good way. Like, I either walk the interstate, the railroad tracks, or somewhere in between, which is probably private property. So I'm not really supposed to do any of those things. But I do have to get there. So we'll see. And it wouldn't be the whole way. After, I think it's just 8 or so miles that I'm kind of in that no good way to get there. After that, there's roads that I can take the rest of the way, like frontage roads along the highway. But I tell you, I plan to get there. Morning on day 93. Onward to Rawlins. This is actually my first rattlesnake, and man, is he or she pissed. I didn't see that snake until it started rattling at me, and I passed by it 10 or 15 feet away, so, you know, I wouldn't have seen it at all. So if they will all give me that much warning to not come any closer, I will happily comply. Back across the North Platte. There's prairie dogs And this one's standing up and yelling. And there was one right here yelling back at him, but I guess I scared that one under the ground. Finally made it. This has been a bit of a different kind of adventure the past several days. Being off the official CDT for like 6 days, really, as a result of that fire. But I like unexpected adventures, but I'm happy to be back in a place where I can get back on the CDT. I am also happy about that Taco Bell that I can see up the road.